Hi, it's Mindrolling. I'm back. I am with Loch Kelly, as if you all should know Loch because he's done a wonderful podcast on Be Here Now Network recently, right? Loch,
Yes,
welcome.
yes.
Sorry, welcome, Loch. Great to
Thank you,
have
sir.
you.
Thank you, Raghu. Great to be
But
here with you.
it is a reminder for everybody. After you listen to our conversation, there's more Loch available all the time on Be Here Now Network. Okay.
24/7.
24/7, yeah. Um, Now, I did take the opportunity to read Shift into Freedom.
Oh,
Read, uh, not completely, I'll be
hmm,
honest,
okay,
because of my time crunch, but enough to really get a good idea of things that interest me and I think everybody who's listening. So,
okay.
yeah. But before any of that, I mean, I think this stuff is in the book, but just
Yeah,
everybody that I first meet, now we've met before, but for the
yeah.
podcast, I always say, well, what are the things that just uh, created that bonfire underneath the tush to really go, okay, this is not real. There is something else that's way more real, and I'm going to go get it. Yeah, what
Yeah.
happened to you?
I mean, if now that I look back, it's fascinating, and many people who are listening may also kind of be able to have this hindsight. I can find little moments in my childhood where things shifted or opened, where I felt interconnected with nature, with other people, where I kind of saw through a veil of something. Um, and, uh, then as I went along, bigger shifts happened. So I'll jump to one that's kind of a dramatic one that happened when I was 19 years old. And I had just had three losses in my life.
Hmm.
My father had brain cancer and
Oh.
gone through a year-long operation where he got better and was about to return to work, and then had a aneurysm and ended up passing away. My grandmother, who had lived with us, who was 99, passed away 3 months later. And then my best friend from the ice hockey team was visiting his girlfriend on an icy road in late one winter and died in a car accident.
Hmm.
And so, it was very intense being that age. My friends would say, well, just come out and have a beer. But many of them had not been through this kind of loss and intensity, at least so quickly
Yeah.
and at so much. So it was building up. I went to counseling. It didn't seem to help much. I came out of the library one night on a kind of a late winter, early spring day. And I just felt the weight of the world, the weight of grief, the weight of everything on me in such a way that it felt like I said to myself, I don't know if I can take this much longer. And at that moment, as I look back, I turned my awareness as if I was looking for a voice that was saying it. So it kind of unhooked from my body and mind and felt back or looked back through whatever voice was talking or whatever sense of self there was. And it literally popped it open so that my awareness continued out into the night sky and into this vast, loving, interconnected feeling of relief and feeling of interconnection and feeling of support. And I just started crying and laughing and was just immediately astounded at how something so heavy and full of all emotions that I'd ever felt could be relieved in a moment. And it actually allowed me then to grieve more thoroughly, but with this background support, with this kind of all ground support of something that I knew wasn't a thing. I didn't know what it was or whether it was bigger than me. It certainly was bigger than me, but it felt like it was within me. And I didn't go to a religious interpretation immediately, but I knew, because I didn't get any images with it. I didn't get any, any specifics.
Yeah.
I just got beingness.
That's a bonfire of grace,
Yeah.
right? Oh my
Yeah.
God, that's phenomenal.
Yeah.
So, and in fact, that short description of that awareness that you just gave, it has a lot to do with certainly the core of what this book is about,
That's
and
right.
certainly in terms of my own interest and everybody that listens, it is about how do we bring that into our day to day, and
Yeah.
from what perspective are we having that awareness, that being the the big elephant in the room, so to
Yeah.
speak, right? So yes, so why don't you give your description of really the most basic
Yeah.
way that we can engender and cultivate that uh, platform from which we are no longer. Ram Dass uses moving from. I mean, you actually have this in the book too, and you couldn't have known about that. Loving awareness.
Yeah. I
It's
call it
kind of,
open-hearted awareness.
yeah, but you called it loving awareness
Oh, I
also.
call it loving awareness too, because
Yeah,
I went back and forth.
yeah.
Different
That's Ram
times.
Dass's big thing is
Uh-huh. Okay.
that's which you're that spacious
Yeah.
awareness that has no judgment, blah blah blah, and how to
Yeah.
move from your thinking mind into that. So
Yeah.
yeah, so it's all one here, but please, yeah,
Yeah.
let us know what
Yeah.
how you
Yeah. So,
characterize it.
so thanks for the question. Yeah, because that's my way of approaching it too. What's the simplest way? What's the most universal way? What's the most contemporary, accessible uh, way to describe this so people can use wherever they're coming from, whatever type of learner, whether a kinesthetic learner, a visual learner, auditory learner, or they have certain philosophical, cultural, or religious beliefs. I kind of approach it as what I call the human being lineage. So I, I look for all the wisdom traditions, look at the principles of what um, they've found, notice how they describe it within their cultural language, within their religious or spiritual meditative tradition, using their own type of language and model of the mind and model of the universe, and then kind of tried to feel into it and studied with fortunately, many great teachers, and would inquire. And then I could say another little story is then when I came back, I ended up going to graduate school and then on a fellowship to India, Sri Lanka, Nepal, studied with some Dzogchen teachers and Vaidya Vedanta teachers. Came back.
Wait,
And,
you're glossing over there. I have to stop you. Okay,
okay.
Tulku Urgyen
Yes,
Rinpoche.
that's
You
right.
can't gloss over. Okay,
Okay.
please
Yeah.
say
For those who don't know, for those who know, I was very fortunate to meet Toku Urgyen Rinpoche, who was one of the great gems of our world, who opened his doors and his heart to many of us who would go and visit, and he would give us pointing out instructions, which when I went, I had been in Sri Lanka doing 10-day retreats, 21-day retreats, and within 3 to 5 minutes of him giving this simple instruction, I felt like the end of a 10-day retreat.
yeah.
But the thing that was added was the loving awareness. So at the end of the mindfulness retreat, I felt the calm and the clarity and the freedom. But now I had the calm, clarity, freedom, and love and interconnection.
Yeah.
But within minutes, and so it was clear that it was being uncovered.
Yeah.
It wasn't being transmitted from him to me like a energy. It was it was something that had been covering, had just relaxed or opened, and there was this open-hearted awareness that was profound.
Yeah, you just described why I don't do 21-day meditation retreats these days.
Yes.
Because I do go and be around that spaciousness, which fortunately
Yeah.
Maharaj Neem Karoli Baba provided for us all these years in
Yes.
Siddhima,
Yeah.
and yeah, 2 minutes, nothing said, just absolutely, I'd be where the 21-day course would have ended in that
Right.
completely loving awareness space. But
Yeah.
yeah, so
So once introduced, uh, I started playing with awareness, and in some ways, I would sit I became a psychotherapist and worked in an outpatient clinic in Brooklyn. And when when clients wouldn't come, they would be psychiatric clients living in halfway houses, community mental health center. I would just start looking out the window and letting awareness start playing with itself. And the amazing thing was the kind of instructions I got from Tulku Urgyen were very similar to that experience of turning awareness around or relaxing or resting as the awareness that's already here. So somehow not striving, not trying, but not going to sleep. So, so finding a way that not my will and not my attention and not my effort, but actually my awareness could find itself as the field of awareness that was embodied and interconnected. And it's almost like I describe it sometimes as, the feeling of riding a bicycle. You just start to feel this balance of awareness rather than going to thought and emotion and physical sensation. The awareness becomes primary, but then you don't remain as a transcendent witness. That's a very key thing, that the awareness is then loving awareness, not just witnessing awareness. And it feels very embodied and interconnected, so that the feeling of the relief of a separate sense of self is really this kind of unity or interconnected field that feels like a relief. Yeah.
yeah, I think, and you're again perfectly mirroring what we've been doing with Ramdas for years now, and what
Yes.
his main thing has been. But I think one good thing, and it is his suggestion, is to center yourself within the middle of your chest, and in
Yes.
that heart space,
Yes.
be able to. That's an immediate thing because of all the we have tremendous association with our hearts, even though
Yes.
it might be misguided a lot of the time
That's
by
right.
emotion and everything. But still, that's a place where it's a natural let go of that
Yes.
mind thing. And like you say, witnessing from the mind is not, it's just another layer of the same kind of a thing. So,
Yes. Yeah. So I have the same. So I basically started reverse engineering kind of some of the classical practices. And one of them is very similar, is called dropping from head to heart. And literally is feeling like your awareness, and people could even try this now, as if your awareness tends to be identified or attached to thinking, creating a thinker. And awareness can simply relax back and then drop and know your jaw directly from within your jaw. And then feel like awareness can drop and know your throat from within your throat. And then you feel awareness drop below your neck till it finds this safe heart space. And so now you're aware of the heart space from the heart space. And then for some people, it opens out or it goes really far within to the subtlest dimension. And then it's as if you're aware and looking out of the eyes of your heart. And so that kind of simple invitation it seems to be easy to learn, and yet it's kind of a way to find this heart space. And the heart space is like a microcosm of the universe. It's like the boundless heart. It's within, but the within is everywhere.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing that when I have been teaching people is to see that it's not the emotional heart, which tends to be like in your throat or in the upper area. It's not your physical heart. It's not even what's on the right side of your chest, what Ramana called the cave of the heart. And it's not your heart chakra. It actually seems to be like a door, like a space that touches all of those hearts and then kind of opens up behind you and kind of looks out forward. So it's like a portal, the heart mind or heart space or eyes of the heart.
Yeah. Heart mind is good.
Yeah, heart mind.
Yeah, heart mind is great. I love that term.
Yeah.
Well, you also just described why people like me who are completely ignorant and lazy and so on and so forth actually had to see the within you and see the without you in somebody in order to get it. You see, this is how. We just had Bob Thurman. You know Bob Thurman?
Oh yeah, I love Bob.
Yeah, we love Bob.
I just laugh.
Yeah, right. Yeah, no, we spent days doing that with him. And at one point, he said he was talking about even enlightened beings. You know, they get worried. Okay, they're worried. And he looks, and Krishnadas was sitting on the right of him, and a bunch of us, of course, were in the audience, and and Ramdas is sitting there, and he said, He's probably really worried about you becoming idiots.
Right, exactly.
Oh God. So, all right, but what we do need to talk about is, I think you put it as mistaken identity. You see, we are all walking around with mistaken identity.
That's right.
And I've told this on almost every podcast I've done because I think it was the funniest thing I've heard in so long. I did a podcast with Adyashanti, beautiful man. And he said, from an early age, I looked at my parents and their friends that would come over, and finally I realized these people are insane, period. That's what he said. They're insane. They've all gone crazy. So I'm going to go inside and find out what's real.
Right.
So, But this mistaken, the way in which we believe our stories and the way in which we indulge the big me. You call mini me. Yeah, mini me. How do we get mini me going? Yeah. What are we going to do?
Little mini me, I look at it in different ways, from just kind of a construct of consciousness that's almost like we have a one-way mirror that we can only look out, but we can't see back through it to see who's behind the mirror. So it's like a hall of mirrors, and we only have windows going out. And so, a lot of the Tibetan invitations are to turn your awareness around and look back to see who's looking, which is kind of the Ramana Maharshi inquiry, whether you do it with words or you do it with awareness or you do it by just relaxing with somebody who's already relaxed in it. You kind of resonate to it.
That's the easiest, by the way, everybody.
Yeah, that's that's right. That's more perceptual. Like there's perception types, there's kind of behavior types, and there's kind of structure types who do more at, like service, is more behavioral.
Yeah.
So this feeling of the mini me, one way I've kind of tracked it is by looking at the intersection of psychology and spirituality, is seeing that at age 1.5 to 3, a child develops what's called, interestingly, in psychology, self-awareness, which is the ability to be aware that you have a name. You see yourself in a mirror and you start to name yourself as Loch. And then more importantly, you start to say, oh, I shouldn't. You internalize a second self that comments on your first sense of,
Yeah.
oh, I want to go grab the stove. There's hot cookies in there. Oh no, you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't touch the stove. Remember? And so who's the you and who's the one that wants to touch the stove? And so this important human development called self-awareness creates a little commentator, judge, mini me that we're looking out from, and it keeps constructing almost like it has a body. So this is kind of the thing I started to realize. I thought, oh, it's first you're just aware of your body, then it thinks it's an entity in you that's actually looking at your body. Oh, look at your hands. What are your hands? You should wash your hands.
It's
like
mini me on steroids. That's what
the
that
mini
is.
me on steroids. But the thing is, the smarter we get, the stronger it gets. So we try to think our way out of it. So it makes it worse. So
reinforces it all. Yeah.
Reinforces it all. So that mini me thinks it has a body, and it is craving to get things to satisfy it, and it's fearful that it's going to get hurt. But the thing is, it can't get hurt because it's only made of thought, and there's nothing for it to eat because it's only made of thought. So the word dukkha for suffering means the perpetual dissatisfaction. So the mini me has this perpetual dissatisfaction. And if you relax out of it for a moment and then realize it's not just the absence, but there's actually a presence or another operating system of whatever you want to call it, bigger self or no self or loving awareness. One of the inquiries I do to let the mini me relax that people could try now, because it's always trying to solve the problem of identity, is just to ask yourself, what's here now when there's no problem to solve?
That's impossible. There's always a problem to solve. How can you say that?
That's the little mini me. But when you're sitting there with Ram Dass, there's no problem, right?
There's no problem then. No, you're right.
No problem. Yeah. No. So that little mini me, answer always, if you go to it, then you start to feel, when I go there, there's a problem. Just now, not in the future, not as if you're getting rid of all things in your life, but just on the level of identity, what would it be like if awareness looked to itself and just considered what's here, who's aware, if there's no problem to solve just now? If you just don't look to thought and don't go to sleep, just feel this sense of being and just see what you notice. So some people may have felt this relaxation of that mini me.
Yeah, it's like, wow, okay, no stress here for the just a minute.
Yeah.
Another good tip, though, is some people have a difficult time without some physical sensation. So taking a few breaths into that center of your chest is a great way to just, okay.
Yeah.
Let me take a minute. Take a.
Yeah.
Yeah. You have a great thing from that I noticed in the book. It's something Einstein said, and I love everything about that. The main obstacle to relief from suffering is our current identity, which we've been talking about. And it's what Einstein called our optical delusion of consciousness.
That's it.
That's great.
Yeah. So that's the feeling. And that literally, if we realize that sometimes people get scared of this kind of, I'm supposed to be empty, or I'm supposed to be no self or nobody or something, but it's not that. Yeah. It's actually just a bind or a secondary contraction when you relax the optical delusion of consciousness and you have a sense that there's a greater operating system that's just simply aware. It's kind of aware like a dog or a baby or a cat. And it has all the functional abilities. Some people, when they drive a car, they drive because they drop into a highly functional flow state, which is not ego-centered, but is able to optimally function. So it's not that you're going to be a couch potato. It's that there's an effortless flow. I call it effortless mindfulness, because you're still aware of what's happening, but you're aware from your loving awareness.
Yep. Yep. There's something else, but I think it's a great word, actually, and it's deconstructing.
Yes.
And unfortunately, doing deconstruction work is actually takes energy.
Yes.
And takes intention.
Yeah.
And practice. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of that going into it. But you talked about, and this is a good thing to talk about, we're talking about deconstructing the mini-me. We can end up in a gap that feels like negative emptiness.
Yeah.
Right? That can seem like a scary transition and could be a rebound effect, send us back to mini-me. Yeah, that's something, let's explicate that, Loch.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the beautiful things about the premises from some of the direct path traditions like Advaita Vedanta, from your tradition, Ramana's tradition, Dzogchen, Mahamudra, is the assumption that you're not just deconstructing into nothingness or no emotion, that you're literally letting go into the solution, so the gap is just like swinging on a rope into the lake. You have to let go.
You have to let go.
When you land, you're going to be you're swimming in this beautiful, stream in this lake. That there is another operating system. That the awakeness that Buddha was is already here within us, and that when you let go of the mini-me, there's just a little disorientation before there's a reorientation. And so having that premise that there is, and waiting till the natural qualities of loving awareness show up, helps people to find what's already here, because it's so subtle, and it's not fast moving like thought. It's very embracing, but quiet initially.
Which is why I think, again, going back to doing the kind of practices which at the very beginning, and that's why we love, that was a really big part of our practice when we were with Neem Karoli Baba, with Maharaji, was Vipassana meditation, which I highly recommend to anybody.
Yeah.
And Jack, Joseph, and Sharon. Mm-hmm. And when you talk about being able to get into a little bit more subtle states, where you did that exercise of going from your head
to heart,
down, going through. So when you're talking about having to really be in a little bit more have more sensitivity.
Yes.
The Vipassana, doing first the concentration of one-pointed meditation, Anapana, and then going into the insight part, which is you start by going through your body and connecting with the rapidly changing molecules and feeling that all the way through. And once you start to do that, I think what you're talking about becomes way more, it's just easier. You're just going to naturally fall into that when you do this exercise, getting to the loving awareness place.
That's right.
So, everybody, will put out on the page show notes a way to get yourself over to Jack, Sharon, and Joseph and get a course in and do some Vipassana, because that's even I believe I've heard that His Holiness, the Dalai Lama, had all of the novice monks do Vipassana courses.
Yes. Yeah.
I had heard that.
They do. Yeah.
And I love this line from you. Awakening doesn't make you become a nobody, a bliss ninny, or a vacant robot, okay? No bliss ninnies allowed here, okay? Mother. And there's one thing that rang my bell was around one practice that you recommend that you do, and we should investigate here, I think,
Yeah.
which is the mind the gap, which
Yeah.
reminded me of
Yes.
Trungpa Rinpoche, who
Yeah.
did a very similar thing. So yeah,
Yeah.
let's talk about, because this is now we got to get into, okay, what are the antidotes to mini me?
That's right.
There is something to do, even though
Yeah.
I also know there's absolutely nothing to do. I've seen that with my own eyes.
Yeah.
But there is something to do. Those things go together.
Yeah. So one of the practices I call mind the gap. And actually, if you want to put this on the notes for people to look at, I have a 4-minute animated video
Oh, cool.
that I call that is exactly this practice that's illustrated by an animator. It's called, I think, How to Find Peace of Mind in 4 minutes. So basically, it's a classical practice from Gampopa and a couple of other where you look for you start with being aware of thoughts, which is kind of like a mindfulness of thoughts, feelings, sensations. And that's your first object. And then you become interested in, all right, so now I'm aware of thoughts are coming and going. So what's not coming and going? What is between the thoughts? Let's look into the space. Let's look into the gap and be just as interested in that. And so the practice that I do that's in my book, but also I think I'd love if people would take a look at this YouTube. It's on YouTube. Finding Peace under my name, Loch Kelly. You'll see it, and that's beautifully illustrated. I start with the secular mantra, blah.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Why? Come on, Ram. Why go to blah? There is a thing with these Sanskrit words that has its own efficacy beyond our minds, Loch. Okay.
Yeah. No, but see, what I'm doing is
getting the religious spirit.
If you go there through the sound, you go with Ram. But if you go there through the gap, what you're doing is you're de-emphasizing thought as the method. So you're saying, okay, you can go through sound or sacred syllable or mantra, but let's go through the door of space or the gap between chattering mind. Or rather than focusing on thoughts, feelings, sensations, you just say blah, and then you're aware of the space. So the goal is not blah. That's just occupying your working mind. It just occupies your mind for gives it something to chew on. You're the puppy mind. Sometimes I call it, rather than the monkey mind.
Right.
And then you'll find that the focus of awareness on spacious awareness will become what I call awareness of awareness. So Vipassana starts with one point of focus, and then 4 foundations of mindfulness, which is focusing on thoughts, feelings, sensations, and mind objects coming and going. And then effortless mindfulness, which is where the Tibetan tradition goes next, is to become aware of space or awareness itself and look back through the meditator to open up the field of intelligence that is what thoughts are made of. And that's the kind of radical thing that actually makes for this feeling of interconnectedness. Is that what I call the effortless mindfulness move? Awareness of awareness. Yeah.
Right. What is this? You also have a term, local awareness.
Yes.
Yeah, talk about that. I'm not sure I get it.
Yeah, so local awareness is different than attention. So attention is defined by Webster's dictionary as applying your small mind to something. And so it can only, it's from your small mind to objects. And when you realize that only awareness can know awareness, the two direct path methods are what I call the resting method, which is what you describe when you just sit and tune in to somebody. Just rest and use your perception, and they say, muddy water, let stand, becomes clear. So you do that.
Mm-hmm.
The other is to turn awareness around. And when you're aware from loving awareness, when you focus on something, you're actually connected to that person or thing from an interconnected field. So the focus is local awareness is focused on something, not attention from your small mind. So it
Small
doesn't take
versus
what's that?
small mind versus
Small mind versus loving
big mind.
awareness. Yeah.
Okay, small mind. Okay, mini me in general.
Mini me. Yeah. So conceptual mind
Right.
that creates a I think therefore I am feeling.
Yeah.
And this open presence or open-hearted awareness is this other no self, self, or the big self in Hinduism.
Yeah.
So from self, you're focusing in an interconnected way. So what I did is I kind of reverse engineered feeling like I was interconnected, and then I felt contracted back into mini me, and I felt like, oh, okay, now I'm back here, so how do I intentionally drop back into the heart? And so the exercise we did to begin with, which people could do again, is if local awareness, which is made of loving awareness, is identified with thinking and is identified with a mini me, which is binding it. If local awareness just steps back and feels down to your chin and then feels down locally to an area of your throat, and then local awareness is what notices your heart space and kind of surrenders into it. You found the local awareness because local awareness is made of the loving awareness, so it can find it easily. And once you're in this loving awareness, now there's an interconnected. You can locally be aware of your knee from within your knee. I can be aware of seeing you on the screen, but I feel that you're not a separate object only, that I feel like there's a interconnected field where kind of like an ocean and the waves are local awareness. So there's an ocean of awareness and you're a local awareness and I'm a local awareness, but we're the same loving awareness.
Hmm. And by the way, everybody, just to show you that a man like this, like Loch, can give us these kind of extraordinarily original sketches for ways in which you can absolutely move beyond mini-me, which is, it's a big subject, Loch, actually, for me.
Yes.
My friend Duncan Trussell and I, actually with Jack Cornfield and Trudy Goodman, are doing a seminar in November. It's called, God, I forget. Summit. It's a big thing. We've never been there. I've never heard of it, but it's Al Gore speaking at it, etc., etc.
Beautiful.
Yeah. And it's basically mini me moves to big us. That's kind of what we're talking about. Something like that. So this subject is of course something I've really been talking to people about. So I'm really glad. But to prove karma and reincarnation, okay? Basically, you tell the story of when you were a kid playing hockey and you were the goalie, and it's a wonderful story that really says, okay, this is why there's karma and reincarnation, because obviously this is something that's in your cells that needed to come out the way it's coming out. So it's wonderful. But tell that story. It's great.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it is so funny because it is like, I'll tell another story, which is that, going back to my 10-year reunion at college, my one of my hallmates, I told him, oh yes, I'm a what are you doing, Loch? I'm a meditation teacher. He literally started laughing so hard he fell down. He goes, you're what? Like that wasn't my, kind of natural personality, but something started showing up that was like, what's this? Who's doing this? What's showing me this? What's happening with this? It was almost like what I call it is, the divine is showing itself to itself, or the awareness is showing itself to itself. And I'm just on board taking taking directions and okay, where you got me going next,
Yeah, doing the best we can. I know.
That's the way I feel it. I don't feel like it's like I'm one particular incarnation of someone, but I feel like there's some wisdom that's tapped into me. I haven't tapped into it. It's like it's got me, And so when I was a kid, I was listening to a sports broadcaster who said that the quarterback has eyes in the back of his head. And I thought, I was like 13. I was like, eyes in the back of his head. How does he do that? And I literally took it. So I started literally practicing this, what I call panoramic awareness, which is opening my peripheral vision until my awareness comes around to hearing on the side, and then I'd open it up. So I have 360-degree awareness, and basically it opened up into the field of loving awareness. And then I felt embodied like a cat. And so I started doing this as a way to prepare to play goalie. And I would literally feel like a cat.
How old were you, can I ask?
So then I was like 14.
Jesus, okay.
Yeah. So 14, I'm there, and I'm looking through these legs and sticks, and all of a sudden my hand would just shoot out and the puck would be in it, because I just trust, and I'd see something start, but then I'd just be in the zone and like hand would shoot out. And then after one of the games, my best friend said, hey man, that was great. Like, how'd you do that? And I said, you really want to know? And I kind of started saying, well, you see, I do this thing where I open my awareness around, and he's like sitting there going like, too much information, like just looking at me. Mm-hmm. But then one of the seniors on the team came the next week and gave me Zen and the Art of Archery and said, here, kid, read this. This is what you were talking about last week. And so I picked it up and started going, oh my God, there's other people who do this. This is real. This is important. Nobody ever told me about this. And so it led me to start to look toward meditation and
it's
things
so
like
great.
that.
I'm just thinking, what was I doing then? I think I was stealing my father's car a lot. Okay. This is what I was doing. You did that too, huh? God, did he have a Corvette?
Had to do both at that time.
Yeah,
right?
I see. Yeah. Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
The default mode network you talk about. Waking from the daydream. Again, it's more of the reality of moving into the perspective that allows the kind of spaciousness that doesn't continue to create habitual patterns, karma, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, talk about that. The default mode network.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just say in general that certainly in the last 20 years and more recently, there's so much research on the benefits of meditation that everyone knows about, from physical stress relief to now more studies that are showing how we can stabilize awareness. And that's where the default mode network are these two networks in our brain that naturally alternate toward external focus and then internal focus. So if you're just sitting, like if I sit on a subway and look at people in the subway car, they'll look out and then their brain will literally take them in, and then the brain network will go on, they'll look out. So they're not looking out and looking in. It's literally an alternating system, which is why we get distracted. So if we're trying to do a task, external network, our brain will just take us in. And then if we're looking within, we'll look without and say, what's going on in the room? So this kind of non-dual awareness, which is what, I'm talking about effortless mindfulness, what Adyashanti and I practice. It balances the default mode network because awareness is primary, and so and the feeling is you're equally aware inside and outside. So it's like there's a continuous field of seamless embodied awareness that doesn't have to look out and look in. That's an intelligence that is equally aware, as if there's no inside, no outside, and on a relative level there is, but on the level of mind, and then the brain gets on board. And when it does, it's almost like a click. You feel like, what a relief. I'm not going off into daydream. And you feel completely balanced and interconnected.
Wouldn't one call that enlightened?
Yeah, something like that. That's what the brain looks like on enlightenment.
Yeah. All right. Well, certainly just backing up a little bit, just to get, I think for most people, to just get to the place where there is some residency in the spiritual heart or loving awareness, but whatever there's so many names. There's only one thing. Yeah. And to be able to inhabit, as I say, that perspective for at least some of the time, and to develop and cultivate that. Yeah. Just think about that, not much else, because it needs to be experiential. And
exactly.
And the problem sometimes with Advaita is people can get a little ahead. Now, I said that. Who did I say that to? Muji.
Okay.
You know Muji. Yeah. Muji's wonderful, totally loving being. I said, non-dual people can get really lost in their minds with this stuff. That's from what I've seen, and he said, yeah, you're absolutely right. But same with bhakti.
Yeah, that's true.
So it's the same with everything. But I do have my own, their projections and judgments. They're involved with the mini-me more. Yeah. Some of it is experiential just because of being with a being like Neem Karoli Baba. So that was our rudder. So, there is at least, that's like Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. You remember that book?
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah. And that whole thing he talks about knowing quality and the tendency there and what that means. Yeah, that's a great book, everybody. Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance.
It's a fun summer read.
Yeah, exactly. By the way, I forgot and absolutely have to say this.
Okay.
Everyone needs to read Tulku Urgyen Rinpoche's book, which is like a memoir, beyond which you've never read anything like. What's the name of it, Loch?
Well, the main one is Rainbow Painting.
Rainbow Painting?
Yes.
What's another one? Gee, that one doesn't.
There's As It Is. And then...
This is totally just his memoir in which he goes through...
Oh, yes. I don't remember the name of that one.
Oh, but okay.
I refer to it as his memoir, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's got quite an incredible name. But our research people at Be Here Now Network are going to find this and put it in the show notes. In the time that we have left... there's a whole thing. Here's where I did not actually read this, but I'm interested in your projection about this, which is the next stage of human development.
Yes.
What are we talking about?
Yeah. So, my feeling, having seen this tremendous progress in my students and my own experience, my colleagues, and the articulation of contemporary practices in everyday life, it feels like it's both necessary and possible that awakening is the next natural stage of human development. That there's an ability for us to upgrade our operating system to more loving awareness. And when that happens, there's a feeling of mutuality, there's a feeling of we working together, the motivations for social justice and activism and kind of working with other people in community just become the natural love of what you want to do. And you feel so much energy to do it, but you also feel right-sized. You don't feel like you have to save the world, and you feel like, oh, well, I'll do my part. I'm good at this. My friend's good at that. These other people in this organization are good at that. Let's all do our own little parts. And it really becomes like a relief to feel like you're part of a group of people and a society. And so that this is not just motivated by hatred or resistance to something, but there's motivation through love. That there's a feeling of really starting both with, like bhakti and starting with seva action first and then doing meditation, or starting with realization, which will lead to action. So they seem to be coming together. And so for a group of us, the work you're doing with podcasts, getting the work out, making it, normalizing it, making these kind of wisdom of people who live, everyday lives in rather than monastics only, just seems like it's possible. And then we almost, it feels like if we say that, it's encouraging, not to be idealizing it, to be honest about our flaws and where we're caught and how we're bumbling along, but also to really take the time to get to know this loving awareness that we are.
Yeah, and I think the comment about seva, service, activism, social justice, all of that, which is very, very, very high on our list of subjects that we do, most of us talk about these days, and the polarization that's involved and so on. It's not as if you're going to just fall into that loving awareness. Right. 100. Again, you would have to be a realized being of some sort to inhabit that. But most of us need to realize that it's the cultivation as you are doing whatever you're doing, and awareness and mindfulness. Yes. It's the intent to work on oneself that is what counts. And and I think you're right, though, in terms of what's coming for all of us. And as a planet, is to have this consciousness much more prevalent, so that we have a better shot at doing something great for our people to come. It was a great thing. I did this to my friend actually last week. We did a podcast. There's a thing in the paper, a meme on social media. Let's do the right thing now to make sure that Keith Richards can be happy in the future on our planet.
That's good.
Let's make this right for Keith, right? In order to do that, we have to. There is work involved, and that's certainly part of this. Thank you, Loch.
Welcome. Great to talk to you.
Yeah, and great to have you as part of Be Here Now Network too. I know you're going to be doing more guest podcasts and so on. Yes. So that's a great thing, and we really appreciate it. And I hope to do this again with you.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I have another book coming out.
Oh, you do?
Next year, next June, called The Way of Effortless Mindfulness.
Oh, okay, great.
So it'll go into more detail.
And we will put up a link to the 4-minute video. How to find peace of mind in 4 minutes, which we'll put it on. We have a Heart Mind app, by the way.
Oh, good.
In which we put up meditations and so on. So we will put this up there, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
And people will be able to do it. Yeah. So that's a
and
great
I have a CD set where some of the practices we talk about are literally 3 minutes to 9 minutes long, and I have 31 of them.
Really?
That help you drop into your heart, that help you open this panoramic awareness.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Great. And all of that will be available on the show notes page. Links to all of it. You'll let us know, Loch, and we'll make sure they're up there.
Okay.
and yeah, the books and everything, because it's just more about helping our
Yeah.
lives get way more in balance. That's the
Beautiful.
theme of Mindrolling, is a life in balance. Simple.
Beautiful. Yes.
Yeah.
Nice. I love it.
Thank you again. Thanks so much,
Thank
Loch.
you. Wonderful. Lots of love to you.
Yeah. Namaste.
Okay. Namaste.